So I'm going to do another Valhalla. And the old dream stirs, the old promises surface slowly, rising from hidden depths. Grave men pledging lives, fortune, sacred honor, signing their names. No, not an insurance ad. Dreams of open fields, voices at evening, communion. Before the stone fortresses of the city rose, simplicity, trust, a man's word. Valhalla floats like a cob on the sea, the sunlight touching him. His eyes are closed. He is smiling in his sleep. He dreams he is a gentle man who has no need to lie. The minnows dance around him in a flurry of tiny sprays. They nibble at his body. He smiles and floats on toward the setting sun. Then abruptly, progress ceases as feet bump a scaly flank. Waking, he scouts the obstacle. Then, with a wet shrug, clambers onto the broad purple back. A large head turns a golden eye, big as a dinner plate, to him, regards him unwinking. Valhalla digs out a soggy butt, lights it from a flaming nostril. Maybe we quit too soon like. The broad wings spread, the body lifts. Valhalla leans back against a scaly ridge and smokes. Home, James. Lives, fortunes, sacred honor. Morning finds them home. And then I'll do one of mine that I found, Hoppy was saying, read something that Huff inspired. You know, I started writing poetry when I was 42 and met Huff within about 3 months. So the gods may have played some role in that. And so I consider myself a very fortunate guy. So this is untitled. I wrote it in the late 90s. Once I took a photo of some cattle standing behind a barbed wire fence off the road a ways. Mesquite trees and cactus everywhere, and the heat made waves over the rocky dirt. Monica was irritated. We were still more than 100 miles from home. She thought I was a fool to pull over just to take a picture of some stupid cows. I waved her off. I hadn't had a drink in over 6 weeks. We had taken a brief vacation to stay in a cabin by the Frio River. Monica had brand new hope for our marriage. I was coming straight home from work. I was riding in a station wagon full of in-laws to church every Sunday. I was busy making things and doing things. 3 nights we spent by the Frio River. 3 dawns I awoke to sit on the porch to smoke cigarettes and let my skin crawl. I smoked cigarettes and wanted so bad to walk up to the highway, put my thumb in the road, to head west maybe, with nothing but the few bucks in my pocket. But I stayed each morning and waited for Monica to rise. For days of holding hands, days of talking about the kids, car payments, buy a house maybe, hopes and dreams. Meals at small town restaurants, evenings watching the green cold water throwing the sunset back in its face, and a kind of lovemaking that left me staring at the ceiling for a while, Monica breathing slow beside me, the tip of my cigarette hissing in the dark. The cattle stood there in the heat, their big eyes tired and waiting for the long ride to the slaughterhouse. We got back into the idling car, put the air conditioner on high, and I kept driving south. Monica talked about how her sister dating a Mexican was just looking for trouble, and her other sister needed to lose some weight in time to fit into her majorette costume. And it was time for a new sofa for the living room, and on the country station, Hank Williams was so lonesome he could cry.
Okay, I'm not a poet. Yeah. I tried to read a poem I wrote to Albert once. It didn't go over too well. But anyways, Sylvia said something that a little bit ago that kind of made me think that there might be something you might be interested in knowing. There is kind of a memorial to Albert already. And how it came about is this way. The night that Albert died, or maybe the next night, somebody tagged the wall of Fresh Plus with some graffiti. I don't know if any of you ever saw it, but it said, "Long live Huff."
There's a picture of it on the table back there.
Right. Well, anyways, the management of Fresh Plus wasn't too happy, and they were going to contract somebody to paint over the whole wall. And the truck showed up, and some people in the neighborhood saw that, and they rallied. And so Fresh Plus decided maybe it wasn't such a good idea to take it off the wall right yet. So they left it. And it was up there, I think, maybe 3 years. Until a certain thing happened. There was a big movie production that happened in Fresh Plus. They closed that whole store off for like a week and a half. It had a movie with Will Ferrell in it. So, I go over there, I sit across the street, several of the other local people. We just sit there and watch Will Ferrell walk in and out several times. Stop. They just did it over and over. It's the same shot.
Yeah.
But they spent a lot of money on this. They put up neon on the building, and they contracted a murals. They wanted a big mural on the side of the wall, and it was supposed to be some grocery store thing. And anyways, this guy shows up. His name was Style Reed, and he's getting ready to paint the wall. And I saw him over there, and I thought, well, this is interesting. So I went over, and I just started talking to him, and I just, I was trying to figure out what was going on. He said, I'm supposed to paint Will Ferrell's face on this wall. And he said, but it's real interesting because people keep coming up to me. They're like, you're not going to paint over the graffiti, are you? And he's like, what is this about? Who's this Huff? So I explained to him. I said, well, he lived across the street, right there, at the apartments. He died. There was this graffiti. People like it. And anyway, Style Reed was getting a lot of flack and heat. And a couple of days later, or maybe 3 or 4 days later, I went up and I was just talking to him again. And anyways, he said, I figured out a solution. I said, all right. Well, anyways, what he ended up doing is the guy on the left is Will Ferrell. But the guy on the right is a young version of Albert Huffstickler. Okay? And, they both have overalls on, but he's got a button. Albert has a button and it says, "Long live Huff." So he made a compromise as best as he could. Long live Huff, still on the wall, and it's Albert Huffstickler, 10 feet, 15 feet tall.
Wow.
That's it.
David introduced me to Huff, and I got to go to one of the esteemed poet readings at his house, which was amazing, just to go into his apartment and be part of that group. I didn't fit in. I was younger. I had, a little money in my pocket, and the next time, and I don't think he enjoyed my poetry very much, but that was beside the point. That didn't matter. And the next time and then from then on, every time I'd see him, we'd sort of greet each other, and I think he recognized me sometimes. And I remember running into him probably 10 years later at Las Manitas down on Congress, now gone, God bless them. And I remember Huff was arguing with the waitress because the coffee was so expensive. He was like, how can you charge me $2.50 for one cup of coffee? I can get, one at the donut place for $1. Anyway, he lost the fight, and I was trying to tell him it's really great coffee. They put cinnamon in it or something. But anyway, that was the last time I saw him. What a character. And so this sort of reminds me of his spirit. There are a lot of poems, this I just picked up off the back, that are kind of, there was one I really wanted to read that was a goodbye poem, but it gets really mad at the end. So I thought I'd go with something a little more gentle. Meta and I drank Hill's Brothers coffee in Phoenix in 1954, living in that small apartment above the dentist's office with a dip in the street right in front of the building. Nights we'd waken to the screech of brakes, followed by a crash as the hood flew up and the driver's heartfelt curses. She made it the old-fashioned way, bringing the water to a boil, then letting the grounds steep. We poured it through a tea strainer into our cups, a powerful, inviting brew on crystalline autumn mornings. I bought a pound today and brought it home with me from H-E-B's in Austin, Texas. 23 years and 1,000 miles distant. And tonight, when I make it, the room will fill with the dark brown fragrance of steeped coffee, and I'll feel very peaceful. You wonder what remains of a relationship after the years are done with it. Well, I'll tell you. Time drains off what is unessential, leaving only the brown, warm fragrance of Hill's Brothers coffee in a small room, a sense of communion, wine deep and eternal.
So I think we need to probably wrap this up in about 10 minutes or so. And Ken, you got something, or no, you got something else? Okay. So keep that in mind if you want to read something, like, come on up.
You gotta get a burning desire, you better get on it.
Time and spaces. Huff to me was always old, always a ghost. But the spaces he opened up for poetry were, well, they don't exist, of course. Rudemire 1, Quacks 1, La Dolce Vita. And so the thing he did that I really respect is that he was a chronicler of things that no one else would say, particularly his own progress. So one of the ones, there were actually two, if there isn't time.
Yeah, there's that.
Okay. Working on my death chant in the Hyde Park Bar and Grill. There are certain ones that just sort of touch a chill to the bone. This is not the room I will die in. That much I know. The walls tell me. These people here, crouched over their plates and glasses, will not look upon my dying face. This girl who serves me coffee at the bar will never stand looking down upon that emptiness of flesh that is my soul remains. I find that reassuring. Good. There's no need to write my will today, or climb on the bar suffused in memories of Little Big Man, or chant my death song just as well. It's not finished anyway. God's not ready for you, the walls say. Fine, I reply, because I'm not ready for him either. But keep working on your death song, warn the walls. Oh, I will. I work on it every day. The music vaguely echoes the 40s. A saxophone content to muse over the melody without drawing attention to itself, a non-violent philosophical saxophone. I should order one for my funeral to accompany my death chant. Yes, I think I want to hold my funeral while I'm still alive, so I can sing my death song accompanied by a 40 saxophone. That way I won't miss anything, because I know I'll be like a kid at bedtime. Do we have to put the lights out yet? I'm not even sleepy. The saxophone moans softly and the piano moves closer, light and comforting, a mother soothing a child. I see my father standing on a troop train, waving his cap as the train moves away, taking him to World War II. I wonder if he's chanting his death song. I wonder if he knows how many years will pass before he sees us again. See, says my mother, he's the only one waving his cap. He's the only one doing it right. The train vanishes. We stand looking after it. I want to give him something, but he's gone. The room swims back. The walls repeat to the saxophone's pulsing moan. This is not the room you'll die in. Outside, a bus goes by taking people home, drowsy from the day. No, this is not the room, but I can almost see it. The saxophone spirals up, then dives, followed by the drums. People come through the door. I watch their faces. Each face is a line in my death song. I write them all down. That's it, say the walls. Keep working on it. I will, I tell them. But just remember, I'm not ready to put the lights out yet. Drums rattle, the saxophone climbs high, high, then plunges into silence. That was beautiful.
Hi, I'm David. Joe Hoppy introduced me to Huff and Huff writing a long time ago, and I've always been really grateful for that. This is Huff. One thing I really liked too about Huff's work was balls, straight up balls. This guy would write about anything, say anything, and say anything about himself like this. The limits of my commitment. I cannot tell a lie. That ugly old woman in 12 was throwing up, and I didn't go into her. I decided that this was a case for professionals and let the nurses take care of it. If she'd been younger, prettier, or not vomiting, or any way other than the way she was, I'm not sure how to end this without telling more about myself than I want to right at this moment. I just said it. This is mine, but it made me think. It also made Joe think of Huff and me too. So, I was at the red light just long enough to see the homeless woman on the traffic island. Her skin and hair the same dirty, burnt color. Try to get the yo-yo she uses in lieu of a cardboard sign to sleep, and possibly make a dollar bill or two appear from a car window. To sleep, to spin without rising or falling at the bottom of the throw. Sit there and spin until recalled upward with the flick of the wrist. But it wouldn't, and when it didn't, once, twice, a third time, she yelled, "Son of a bitch!" and swung the string and yo-yo down fiercely onto the concrete, crack smashing the yo-yo into 5 or 10 chunks of sparkly plastic. And there was something so dignified, something so brave and necessary about that crack and smash, about her choice not to quietly suffer the slings and arrows of her lack of skill or a finicky yo-yo, that made me give her $10, that made me proud of her, proud of all of us.
Go ahead.
Well, I was fortunate to meet Huff 50 years ago. I was 18, and we were close friends for the next 2 decades. And, this is just great having these memories. He didn't talk about his own father very much. He talked about his mother a lot. And here's a poem about his father. He's kind of Huff was a kind of a father figure to me in some ways. This is by the way, it's kind of hard to read because it's a carbon copy. He, tacked this out on a mechanical. June 14th, 1979. It's My Father the Falcon. My father the falcon, stern and sure, flew until he could fly no longer, then plummeted into a winged despair, touched earth, and died. A bundle of wilted feathers, the wind slowly dispersed in uneven flight, till a small white bundle of bones alone marked the place of his final fall. Small creatures came to study these and nibble them, then left them for the wind to polish, and that is all. Somewhere out on the desert sands, they rest still, white and shining, essence of flight with the flight removed, bound to the earth they never loved.